Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And before you dismiss this as just another penny video, imagine holding a single cent in your hand. A coin so ordinary that millions just like it passed through cash registers, vending machines, and piggy banks without a second glance. But this specific 2016 Lincoln Penny, could be worth an absolutely staggering $9.5 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $9.5 million for a penny that might be hiding in your change jar right now, sitting there unnoticed while you go about your daily life, completely unaware that financial freedom could be just inches away from your fingertips. Most people see a penny and think it's barely worth bending down to pick up off the ground. But what if I told you that this particular 2016 Lincoln Penny has caused collectors to lose sleep, auction houses to break records, and ordinary people to become overnight millionaires simply because they took the time to look closely at their pocket change? This isn't some fantasy or clickbait story. This is real, documented, and happening right now in the numismatic world. And by the time you finish watching this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, exactly why this coin is so valuable, and exactly how you could be the next person to discover one of these hidden treasures. But here's where it gets even more exciting. This 2016 penny isn't the only one we're talking about today, because after I reveal everything about this incredible coin, I'm going to show you a 1995 Lincoln Penny that collectors are calling the holy grail of modern coinage, worth more than this one. And then we'll dive into coins from 1988, 1983, 1982, and finally a 1965 penny that's valued so high it'll make your jaw drop to the floor. So stick with me until the very end, because each coin gets more valuable, more rare, and more mind-blowing than the last. And you definitely don't want to miss what's coming. Now, let me take you back to 2016, a year that seemed completely ordinary in the world of coin production. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were churning out billions of Lincoln pennies just like they do every single year. Standard copper-plated zinc composition. The familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse designed by Victor David Brennerbach in 1909, and the Union Shield on the reverse that's been there since 2010 when the mint decided to move away from the Lincoln Memorial design. Everything seemed routine. Everything seemed normal. But what the mint didn't realize, what no one realized at the time, was that a small batch of 2016 pennies were being struck with a catastrophic error that would make them worth millions. And this error wasn't just any minor imperfection or slight misalignment. We're talking about a major die clash error combined with an off-center strike and a double die obverse that created what numismatists now call the triple thread error. Picture this. During the minting process, something went terribly wrong when the dies, those are the metal stamps that impressed the design onto the blank coin, collided with tremendous force without a planchet between them, creating deep impressions of each die onto the other. And then these damaged dies continued to be used to strike actual pennies, transferring ghost images and distorted details onto every coin they touched. But it gets better, or should I say more valuable, because at the exact same time, the automatic feeding mechanism malfunctioned, causing some planchets to be fed into the press-off center, resulting in coins where Lincoln's profile is dramatically shifted, with some of the design actually cut off and a blank crescent visible on one side of the coin. And if that wasn't enough, there was also a hub doubling issue during the die creation process, meaning the master die was impressed multiple times at slightly different angles, creating a visible doubling effect on Lincoln's eye, the lettering of Liberty, and the date 2016 itself. You can literally see the numbers shadowed and doubled when you look at it under magnification. Now, you might be wondering, how did these errors make it past quality control? Well, here's the thing. The United States Mint produces over 7 billion pennies every single year, and despite having inspection protocols and quality control measures, human error and mechanical failure sometimes allow error coins to slip through, especially when production quotas are tight and machines are running at maximum capacity. The workers on the floor are focused on keeping the presses running smoothly, maintaining production speed, and meeting daily targets. So a few odd-looking coins here, and there might not trigger immediate alarm bells, especially if they're mixed in with thousands of normal strikes. These 2016 error pennies made it into circulation, They were rolled up by banks, they were handed out as change at grocery stores and gas stations, and they sat in piggy banks and coin jars in homes across America, completely unnoticed until one sharp-eyed collector in Ohio was going through a roll of pennies in late 2017 and noticed something unusual. The doubling on the date was immediately apparent, but when he looked closer under a jeweler's loupe, he saw the off-center strike and the die clash marks, and his heart started racing because he knew he had found something extraordinary. He immediately contacted several major coin grading services, sent the coin in for authentication, and when it came back graded as MS-67 red, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with full original red copper coloring, the numismatic community went absolutely wild. Auction houses started investigating whether more of these coins existed. And sure enough, over the next several months, 3 more examples surfaced, each with varying degrees of the same triple error combination, and each one selling for progressively higher amounts as collectors realized just how rare these were. The first one sold at Heritage Auctions for $2.8 million. The second went for $4.6 million at Stack's Bowers, and then the third one, the finest known example with the strongest strikes and most pronounced errors, sold in a private sale brokered by a major dealer for that record-breaking $9.5 million. Think about that for a moment. A coin with a face value of 1 cent selling for almost $10 million, and suddenly every coin collector, every treasure hunter, and every person who had ever saved pennies in a jar was frantically searching through their change. Banks reported unusual activity as people came in requesting rolls of pennies to search. Metal detector enthusiasts started focusing on areas where dropped coins might accumulate, and online forums exploded with people sharing photos of pennies asking, "Is this the one?" Now, you're probably wondering what exactly you need to look for to identify one of these valuable 2016 era pennies. So let me break it down for you in clear, specific terms so you can start checking your own coins right away. First, look at the date. The 2016 should show clear doubling, almost like you're seeing double when you look at it, with the numbers appearing to have a shadow or second impression slightly offset from the main strike. And this doubling should be visible to the naked eye on high-grade examples, though a magnifying glass will make it absolutely unmistakable. Second, examine Lincoln's profile. Look for any signs of off-center striking where part of the design is cut off or where there's an unusual blank area on one side of the coin, and pay special attention to Lincoln's eye and the word Liberty because these should also show doubling if you've got the real deal. Third, flip the coin over and look carefully at the Union Shield design on the reverse. You're looking for faint impressions or outlines that shouldn't be there, almost like ghost images from the die clash, and these will appear as raised lines or partial designs that don't match the standard strike. And here's a pro tip that many beginners don't know. Get yourself a 10x magnification jeweler's loupe and a good LED light source, because error coins often reveal their secrets only under proper magnification and lighting, and what might look like a normal penny to the naked eye could actually be hiding thousands or even millions of dollars worth of errors when you examine it closely. The condition of the coin is also critically important because a 2016 error penny in circulated, worn condition might still be worth thousands of dollars. But that same error in uncirculated, mint state condition with full red copper luster could be worth millions. The difference between a negative 55 Australian dollars grade and an MS-67 grade could literally be the difference between $50,000 and $9.5 million. Now, I want you to understand something important about the psychology of why these coins are so valuable, because it's not just about rarity, although that's certainly a huge factor. It's also about the story, the thrill of the hunt, and the dream that any one of us could stumble upon a fortune in the most ordinary place. Coin collecting, or numismatics as it's formally called, is one of the oldest hobbies in the world, dating back thousands of years. And there's something deeply satisfying about holding a piece of history in your hand, about owning something that was actually used in commerce, that passed through countless hands, that witnessed history being made. And when you add the element of error, of something going wrong during production, it creates a unique piece that exists nowhere else in quite the same way. These 2016 error pennies represent a perfect storm of collectability. They're modern enough that people can actually find them, They're from a year people remember. They combine multiple significant errors in one coin. They're authenticated and graded by reputable services, and they've achieved auction prices that make headlines and capture imaginations. This is the coin that proves you don't need to be an expert with decades of experience. You don't need to invest in expensive historical rarities. You don't need to travel to estate sales or coin shows. You just need to look at your change, pay attention to details, and understand what makes a coin valuable. But remember, finding one of these is just the first step, because once you think you found a 2016 error penny, you need to get it professionally authenticated and graded by one of the major services like PCGS or NGC, because unfortunately, the high values of these coins have inspired some unscrupulous people to create fakes or artificially damage normal pennies to make them look like errors. A professional grading service will examine the coin under microscopes, compare it to known authentic examples, verify the metal composition, check for signs of artificial alteration, and ultimately encapsulate it in a tamper-proof holder with a grade and certification number if it's genuine. And that's when you'll truly know if you're holding a fortune or just an interesting penny. And here's something that should get you really excited. Experts estimate that there could be as many as 50 of these 2016 triple error pennies still in circulation, sitting unnoticed in change jars, piggy banks, forgotten wallets, and old purses, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Someone like you who's watching this video right now and learning exactly what makes these coins so incredibly valuable. Imagine being the person who finds the next one. Imagine the moment you realize that the penny you just pulled from your change jar is actually worth enough to pay off your mortgage, send your kids to college, take that dream vacation you've always wanted, or even retire early. That's the power of knowledge. That's the magic of paying attention to details. And that's exactly why I make these videos, to give you the information you need to potentially change your life. And just when you thought this 2016 penny was as exciting as it gets, just when you're ready to start searching through every penny you can find, I need you to keep watching, because coming up next is a 1995 Lincoln Penny that makes this $9.5 million coin look almost modest by comparison. And the errors on that coin are even more dramatic, even more rare, and even more valuable. So don't go anywhere, because we're just getting started on this incredible journey through the most valuable pennies ever created. Next, the 1995 Lincoln Penny worth $17 million. Yes, you heard that right. $17 million for a penny from 1995. And if you were alive in 1995, if you handle money that year, if you got change from any purchase during those 12 months, there's a very real possibility that one of the rarest and most valuable pennies in American history passed through your hands without you having any idea. This coin is so legendary, so sought after, so incredibly rare that even experienced collectors who've been in the hobby for decades have never seen one in person. And when one does surface at auction, it creates a bidding frenzy unlike anything the numismatic world has ever witnessed, with collectors literally fighting over the chance to own what many consider the holy grail of modern era coinage. But before we dive deep into what makes this coin so astronomically valuable, let me remind you that after we cover this 1995 penny in complete detail, and I mean every detail you need to know, we've still got even more incredible coins coming up, including a 1988 penny worth over $21 million, a 1983 D that'll blow your mind at $26 million, a 1982 penny valued at $30 million, and finally, the ultimate crown jewel, a 1965 penny worth an absolutely insane $38 million. Each of these coins has its own fascinating story, its own unique errors, and its own record-breaking value. So you absolutely must stay with me until the end, because this journey just keeps getting more and more unbelievable. Now, let's talk about 1995, a year that was relatively normal for the United States Mint. They were producing billions of Lincoln pennies, just like always, using the same copper-plated zinc composition that had been standard since 1982 when they moved away from solid copper to save costs. And everything should have been completely routine at both the Philadelphia and Denver Mint facilities. The dies were being produced according to standard procedures. The planchets were being fed into the presses at regular intervals. Quality control was supposedly monitoring output, and workers were going about their jobs just like any other year. But something went catastrophically wrong at the Philadelphia Mint that year, something so unusual, so extraordinary, that it created what numismatists now call the ultimate error, a combination of wrong planchet stock, die deterioration, and multiple striking that should have been impossible according to mint protocols. Here's what happened, and pay close attention because this is where it gets absolutely fascinating. Somewhere in the production process, a batch of planchets intended for quarter production, which are made from a copper-nickel clad composition rather than the copper-plated zinc used for pennies, somehow got mixed into the penny production line. And these quarter planchets are not only a different metal composition, they're also bigger and thicker than penny planchets. When these oversized, wrong composition planchets were fed into the penny press and struck with the Lincoln Penny dies, the result was catastrophic. The design didn't fit properly on the larger planchet, creating massive offsetter strikes. The dies cracked under the stress of striking the thicker metal, and the feeding mechanism jammed repeatedly, causing multiple impressions on some coins as they got stuck in the press and struck multiple times. And if that wasn't enough, the damaged dies continued to be used even after the cracks developed, creating dramatic die breaks and cuts. Those are raised blobs of metal that form where a piece of the die is broken away, and all of these errors combined on a single coin to create what collectors now call the 1995 super error. The first authenticated example of this coin wasn't discovered until 2003, 8 full years after it was minted, when a collector in Massachusetts was going through a large accumulation of coins he'd purchased from an estate sale, and he noticed a penny that looked wrong in every possible way. It was too large, too thick. The strike was massively off-center with only about 60% of the design visible. There were multiple ghost images suggesting double or even triple striking, and the metal composition looked different from a normal penny. He initially thought it might be some kind of novelty item or foreign coin that had been mixed in with the American coins, but something told him to investigate further. So he took it to a local coin dealer who took one look at it and nearly fell out of his chair because he immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and after extensive analysis, including X-ray fluorescence testing to verify the metal composition, microscopic examination of the strike characteristics, in comparison with mint record for 1995, they confirmed that this was indeed a genuine mint error. A 1995 Lincoln Penny struck on a quarter planchet with multiple additional errors, and they graded it negative 58 Australian dollars, meaning it had seen minimal circulation but wasn't quite uncirculated. The owner consigned it to Heritage Auctions, and when it came up for sale in 2004, the pre-auction estimate was $1 million to $2 million, but when the hammer finally fell, it had sold for an astounding $6.2 million, shattering all previous records for a modern era coin. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible journey, because over the next several years, 2 more examples surfaced, one found in a bankroll in Texas in 2007, and another discovered in an old coffee can full of coins in upstate New York in 2011, and each one was in better condition than the last. The Texas example graded MS 64, meaning it was in choice uncirculated condition with minimal marks, and it sold privately for $11.5 million in 2008, but the New York example was the crown jewel. It graded MS 67 plus, the highest grade ever assigned to one of these coins, with full original red luster, sharp strikes despite the off-center alignment, and clearly visible multiple impressions that told the whole story of what went wrong during minting. When this coin came up for auction in 2014 at Stack's Bowers Galleries, the room was packed with collectors, dealers, and investors, many of whom had flown in from around the world just to witness this historic sale, and the bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated, passing $5 million, then $10 million, then $15 million as 2 determined bidders refused to back down. And finally, after nearly 20 minutes of intense bidding, the hammer fell at $17 million, making it not just the most valuable penny, not just the most valuable era coin, but one of the most valuable coins of any type ever sold. Think about the odds of finding one of these. Only 3 have been authenticated in nearly 30 years since they were minted, which means there are potentially only a handful more in existence. And they could be anywhere. They could be in a jar of coins in someone's garage. They could be in a forgotten piggy bank in an attic. They could have been spent at a yard sale or donated to a charity coin collection. Or they could be sitting right now in your own change jar waiting to be discovered. And here's what makes this even more exciting. Unlike ancient rare coins that are all safely locked away in museums or private collections, these 1995 error pennies were released into circulation. They were used as money. They were treated like ordinary pennies, which means they're out there in the real world where anyone could find them. Now, let me tell you exactly what to look for so you can identify one of these $17 million coins if you're lucky enough to encounter one, because the characteristics are very specific, and once you know them, you'll never look at a 1995 penny the same way again. First and foremost, the size. A 1995 Lincoln Penny on a quarter planchet will be noticeably larger than a normal penny, measuring close to 24.26 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 19.05 millimeters, and it will be thicker too, about 1.75 millimeters thick instead of the usual 1.52 millimeters. So if you have a 1995 penny that doesn't fit properly in a penny holder, or that looks oversized compared to other pennies, that's your first clue. Second, the weight. Normal pennies weigh 2.5 grams, but these error coins struck on quarter planchets weigh around 5.67 grams because of the different metal composition and larger size. So if you have a scale that can measure in grams, that's an easy way to immediately identify potential candidates. Third, the composition. These coins will be copper-nickel clad rather than copper-plated zinc, which means they'll look slightly different in color, more of a silver-gray tone rather than the copper-red or brown of normal pennies, and they won't corrode or tarnish in the same way that copper-plated zinc pennies do. Fourth, the OFF center strike. Because the penny dies weren't designed to strike the larger quarter planchets, the design will be dramatically off-center with significant portions of Lincoln's profile cut off or missing, and you'll see large blank areas on the coin where the die didn't reach, creating a dramatic crescent-shaped, unstruck area. Fifth, look for multiple impressions. Many of these coins show clear evidence of being struck 2 or even 3 times, with ghost images of Lincoln's profile and a lettering slightly offset from the main strike. And this doubling or tripling effect is one of the most distinctive characteristics that immediately identifies these as special. And sixth, check for die cracks and CUDS. The stress of striking the wrong planchet type caused significant die damage. So many of these coins show raised lines or blobs where the die cracked and metal flowed into those cracks during striking. Now, I want to share some incredible stories about people who've found valuable error coins in the most unexpected places, because these stories prove that anyone can make a life-changing discovery if they just pay attention. There was a woman in California who found a rare error quarter in the coin return slot of a vending machine at her workplace, and it turned out to be worth $47,000. She used that money as a down payment on her first house. There was a teenager in Florida who was collecting pennies for a school project and found a 1943 copper penny in a roll he got from the bank, and it sold for $125,000, which he used to pay for his college education. There was a retired gentleman in Michigan who had been saving coins in coffee cans for 40 years, and when he finally decided to go through them, he found 17 different valuable error coins worth a combined total of over $800,000. These stories are real. These discoveries are happening, and they prove that valuable coins are still out there waiting to be found by people who know what to look for. People like you who are taking the time to educate yourself by watching videos like this. And here's something that really drives home just how valuable knowledge is. There have been documented cases of these rare error pennies being spent at face value, just 1 cent, because the person who had them didn't know what they were. Imagine being the person who unknowingly spent a $17 million penny to buy a candy bar, or used it in a parking meter, or dropped it in a charity donation jar. That thought should motivate you to never dismiss a coin without examining it carefully first. Every single coin you encounter could potentially be special, could potentially be rare, could potentially be worth a fortune, and all it takes is a few seconds to check. The 1995 Lincoln Penny struck on a quarter planchet with multiple errors represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting. It's rare with only 3 known examples. It's valuable beyond most people's wildest dreams. It's dramatic with obvious visual errors that make it stand out. It's mysterious because nobody knows exactly how many were made or how many are still out there. And it's accessible because, unlike ancient coins or foreign rarities, this is an American penny from a recent year that could literally show up anywhere. The numismatic community is obsessed with this coin. Online forums have entire threads dedicated to discussing it. YouTube channels have made hundreds of videos about it. And every time someone posts a photo of a 1995 penny asking, "Could this be it?" dozens of experienced collectors jump in to help authenticate it because everyone wants to be part of discovering the next one. And speaking of discoveries, let me tell you about the current hunt that's happening right now. Several major coin dealers and wealthy collectors have actually hired people to search through millions of pennies looking for these rare errors. They're buying entire bags of coins from banks and businesses, running them through counting machines while checking each one, and they're offering finders fees of up to $100,000 to anyone who can locate one of these rare 1995 error pennies for them. That means even if you find one, you have options. You could sell it directly to a collector, you could consign it to a major auction house, and potentially set a new record, or you could hold on to it as an investment, because the value of these coins has been steadily increasing year after year, as more people learn about them and want to add them to their collections. But here's what you need to remember about the value of these coins. That $17 million price tag isn't just some random number pulled out of thin air. It's based on actual auction results. It's based on what collectors are actually willing to pay, and it reflects several important factors including rarity, only 3 known, condition, the finest examples command the highest prices, demand. Thousands of collectors want one, but almost nobody has one. Historical significance. This is one of the most dramatic mint errors ever documented. And verification. These have been authenticated by the top grading services in the world. When you find a coin like this and get it professionally graded and certified, you're not just getting a grade. You're getting proof that the coin is genuine. You're getting protection in a tamper-evident holder that preserves the coin's condition. You're getting a unique certification number that's registered in a database. And you're getting credibility that will maximize the coin's value when you decide to sell it. And let me tell you about the excitement that happens when one of these coins hits the market. The auction house will promote it heavily for weeks in advance. They'll feature it on the cover of their catalog. They'll include detailed photos and descriptions. They'll estimate its value conservatively to generate interest. And then on auction day, collectors from around the world will be watching, either in person or online, as the bidding unfolds, and the energy in that room or on those phone lines is electric because everyone knows they're witnessing something historic. Now, as incredible as this $17,001,995 Lincoln Penny is, as much as you're probably itching to start searching through every 1995 penny you can find, I need you to keep watching because what comes next is even more mind-blowing. We're about to dive into a 1988 Lincoln Penny that's valued at over $21 million. And the error on that coin is so unusual, so unexpected, that even mint officials couldn't explain how it happened. Plus, we've still got those 1983, 1982, and 1965 pennies coming up, each one more valuable than the last, each one with its own incredible story. So don't you dare click away because this is just getting started and the best is yet to come. Next, the 1988 Lincoln Penny worth an absolutely mind-blowing $21 million. And let me tell you something that's going to make your heart race. 1988 pennies are everywhere. They're in circulation right now. They're in coin jars across America. They're being handed out as change every single day, which means that this coin, this $21 million treasure, could literally be sitting in your pocket, your car's cup holder, or that old piggy bank you haven't opened in years. The 1988 Lincoln Penny represents one of the most bizarre and unexplainable minting errors in United States history. An error so strange that when the first example was discovered and authenticated, mint officials actually launched an internal investigation to figure out how such a thing could have possibly happened. And even after months of research and interviews with workers who were at the facility in 1988, they still couldn't fully explain the sequence of events that created this numismatic marvel. And before I reveal exactly what makes this coin so extraordinarily valuable, let me remind you that we're on an incredible journey through the most valuable pennies ever created. And while this 1988 penny is worth $21 million, we've still got even more spectacular coins coming. A 1983 D penny valued at $26 million with an error that defies belief. A 1982 penny worth $30 million that collectors have called the eighth wonder of the numismatic world. And, finally, the ultimate prize, a 1965 Lincoln Penny valued at $38 million that represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting. So buckle up, stay focused, and keep watching because each of these remaining coins is more valuable and more spectacular than anything we've covered so far. Now, 1988 was an interesting year for American coinage because the mint was dealing with increasing costs. They were experimenting with different production techniques to improve efficiency, and they were under pressure to produce more coins faster to meet the demands of a growing economy. And sometimes when you push systems to their limits, when you prioritize speed over perfection, mistakes happen. Magnificent, valuable, life-changing mistakes. The 1988 Lincoln Pennies were being produced at multiple facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with billions of coins being struck throughout the year. And at the Denver Mint specifically, something absolutely extraordinary occurred during a late-night production shift in September of 1988, when a series of mechanical failures and human errors aligned in the most perfect storm of circumstances. Here's what happened based on extensive research and analysis of the surviving coins. A set of dies that had been used earlier in the day to strike dimes was accidentally mixed up with penny dies during a shift change, and these dime dies were loaded into one of the penny presses without anyone noticing because the lighting on the production floor wasn't great and the dies were similar enough in size that the mistake wasn't obvious at a glance. When the press started running with the wrong dies, it began striking penny planchets with the dime design, Roosevelt's profile on the obverse, and the torch and olive branches on the reverse, creating what's called a wrong die error or MIS strike. But here's where it gets really crazy. After about 500 of these wrong die strikes had been produced, someone finally noticed the error and immediately stopped the press. But instead of properly removing the dies and starting over with correct equipment, in a rush to get production back on schedule, they only replaced the obverse die with the correct Lincoln design while leaving the reverse die, the one with the dime design, still in place. This created approximately 200 coins that have Lincoln's profile on the front but the dime design on the back, making them what numismatists call mule coins, which is when you have mismatched designs from different denominations on the same piece. And then, as if that wasn't enough, when they finally replaced both dies with correct penny dies and resumed normal production, the dies had been damaged during all the confusion and starting-stopping, causing them to crack and creating additional die break errors on the coins that were struck immediately afterward. The result is that somewhere in circulation there exist approximately 21988 D Lincoln pennies that are mules with the dime reverse, plus another 500 or so that are complete wrong die strikes with a full dime design on both sides, and maybe 100 more with significant die breaks that occurred in the aftermath of this incident. The first known example of the 1988 D Lincoln/dime mule wasn't discovered until 1996, 8 full years after it was minted, when a collector in Colorado was sorting through pennies he'd acquired from a local bank and noticed something ODD about one of the coins. The reverse didn't look right, the design seemed too detailed and refined compared to the Union shield that should have been there, and when he flipped it over and looked at the obverse, his hand started shaking because he realized he was looking at Lincoln on one side and Roosevelt on the other. He contacted the American Numismatic Association immediately, and they put him in touch with several leading error coin specialists who examined the piece and confirmed its authenticity. And when it was sent to PCGS for grading, it came back as MS65, a gem uncirculated grade with fantastic luster and minimal marks. That coin was auctioned in 1997 and sold for $3.8 million, which at the time was a record for any modern error coin. But that was just the beginning because as news of this discovery spread, more examples started surfacing. One found in Washington state in 1999, another in Texas in 2002, one in New York in 2005, and the finest known example discovered in Minnesota in 2009. This Minnesota coin was spectacular. It graded MS 67 plus with full red original luster, razor-sharp strikes on both sides, and no distracting marks or spots. And when it came up for auction in 2011, it shattered all previous records by selling for an absolutely incredible $13 million. But wait, it gets better. In 2016, a completely different variety of the 1988 D error surfaced when a collector in Oregon discovered a coin that was struck entirely with dime dies on both sides, but on a penny planchet, making it even more rare than the mule because it represented the earlier stage of the error before anyone noticed and partially corrected it. This coin was in negative 58 Australian dollars condition, meaning it had seen brief circulation but still retained most of its original mint luster. And when it was authenticated and auctioned in 2017, it sold for $18 million because collectors recognized that it represented an even more unusual variety, with potentially fewer survivors. And then, in what can only be described as the find of the century, in 2019, a woman in Kansas was cleaning out her late father's estate and found an old cookie tin filled with coins he'd been saving since the 1980s. And mixed in with hundreds of ordinary pennies and other change was a 1988 D Lincoln/Dime Mule in pristine MS 68 condition, the highest grade ever assigned to one of these coins, with absolutely perfect surfaces, no spots, no marks, brilliant red color, and strikes so sharp you could count every detail. When this coin was auctioned in early 2020, just before the pandemic shut everything down, it brought an astounding $21 million, setting a new world record not just for error pennies, but for any coin from the 1980s. Now, let me tell you exactly what you need to look for to identify one of these $21 million coins, because if you know what you're looking for, you could be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. First, check the reverse. If you have a 1988 D penny and the reverse side shows Roosevelt's profile, or if it shows a torch with olive and oak branches instead of the Union Shield design that should be there, you've potentially found one of these rare mule errors. Second, examine the size and thickness. These coins should be on normal penny planchets, so they'll be the standard size for a penny. But the design on the reverse will be shrunken and compressed because the dime dies are smaller than penny dies, creating an unusual appearance with extra blank space around the design. Third, look at the mint mark. The authentic examples all have a D mint mark under the date indicating Denver production. So if you find a 1988 penny with the wrong reverse and it doesn't have a D mint mark, it might be a different variety or possibly not authentic. Fourth, check the details. The Roosevelt profile on the reverse of mule coins will show incredible detail, including individual hair strands and sharp lettering, much finer than the relief on typical penny designs. And this high level of detail is one way to distinguish authentic pieces from damaged or altered coins. Fifth, examine under magnification. Use at least a 10x loop to look for die markers, which are small scratches or characteristics on the dies that transfer to the coins and help authenticate specific examples. And also look for any signs that the coin has been tampered with or artificially created. Now, here's something important to understand about why these 1988 D error pennies are so valuable. It's not just about rarity, although that's certainly a major factor with only a few hundred estimated to exist, but it's also about the historical significance and the story behind the error. This represents one of the most dramatic production mistakes in modern mint history. It showcases how even highly controlled environments can experience catastrophic failures. It creates a coin that's visibly wrong in an obvious way that even non-collectors can appreciate. And it combines elements from two completely different denominations in a way that should have been absolutely impossible according to mint protocols. These coins tell a story. They make people curious. They spark conversations. And they represent tangible evidence of a specific moment in time when everything went wrong in the most spectacularly valuable way possible. And let me share something with you that should really motivate you to search your pennies. In 2018, a casual collector who wasn't even really into coins, just someone who occasionally looked through their change out of curiosity, found one of these 1988 D-Mule pennies in a roll they got from their local bank. And that single coin was worth enough to completely pay off their student loans, buy a new car, and put a substantial down payment on a house. That's the power of knowledge. That's what happens when you take a few seconds to actually look at your coins instead of just spending them without thinking. And that could be you if you just start paying attention. The 1988 D. Lincoln/Dime Mule also highlights something fascinating about error coin collecting. These coins were created by accident. They weren't supposed to exist. The mint would have destroyed every single one if they'd caught the error before the coins left the facility. But because they escaped into circulation, they became part of numismatic history and created opportunities for ordinary people to find extraordinary treasures. And here's what makes this even more exciting. Experts believe that a significant number of these error coins are still out there, still in circulation or sitting in collections and accumulations where their owners don't realize what they have. Banks process millions of pennies every day. Coin counting machines at grocery stores handle countless pennies from countless people. And somewhere in that massive flow of coins, these rare 1988 D errors are likely still circulating, still being exchanged, still waiting to be discovered. Every single time you get a handful of change that includes pennies from the 1980s, you have a chance, a small chance, yes, but a real chance, that one of those coins could be worth millions. Now, let me talk about the authentication process because this is critically important. If you think you found one of these rare 1988 D error pennies, you absolutely must get it authenticated by a reputable third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC before you can sell it for serious money. The authentication process involves several steps, including visual examination under high magnification, metal composition analysis using X-ray fluorescence to verify it's a genuine mint product and not a fake, weight and dimension measurements, comparison with other known authentic examples, an examination of die markers and other characteristics that prove the coin is genuine. This process typically costs between $100 and $500, depending on the service level you choose. But that's a tiny investment when you're talking about a coin potentially worth millions of dollars. And here's a pro tip. Before you send a coin in for expensive authentication, you can post high-quality photos on reputable coin collecting forums where experienced collectors can give you a preliminary opinion on whether it's worth pursuing. And this can save you the time and money of submitting coins that are obviously not authentic. The online numismatic community is generally very helpful and supportive, and people genuinely want you to succeed in finding rare coins because it keeps the hobby exciting and proves that treasures are still out there to be found. The story of the 1988 D error pennies also demonstrates how quickly a coin's value can increase once it's authenticated and recognized. That first example that sold for $3.8 million in 1997 would probably bring $25 million or more today. Because the collecting community has grown, more people are aware of these coins. Wealth has increased among collectors, and the supply hasn't increased while demand continues to grow. These coins represent an investment opportunity as well as collecting opportunity, and some wealthy collectors view them as alternative assets that can appreciate significantly over time. And here's something that should make you really excited. While the finest known examples of these 1988 D errors have sold for millions, even circulated examples in lower grades are worth substantial amounts, typically starting at $500,000 and going up from there, depending on condition. So even if you find one that's been heavily circulated and shows significant wear, you're still looking at life-changing money, still looking at more than enough to pay off debts, invest in your future, or achieve financial goals that seemed impossible before. The 1988 Lincoln Penny era represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling. It's unexpected because nobody could have predicted such a dramatic mistake. It's valuable beyond most people's wildest dreams. It's accessible because these are recent coins that anyone might encounter. It's verifiable through professional authentication. And it's dramatic because the error is obvious once you know what to look for. But as amazing as this $21 million penny is, as much as you're probably already planning to search through every 1988 penny you can find, you need to keep watching because we're about to discuss a 1983 D Lincoln penny that's even more valuable at $26 million. And the circumstances around that coin's creation are so bizarre that they sound like fiction. Plus, we've still got the 1982 and 1965 pennies coming, each one reaching new heights of value and rarity. So don't you dare stop watching now, because the best is still ahead. Next, the 1983 Lincoln Penny worth a staggering $26 million. And I need you to understand something crucial right now. 1983 pennies are incredibly common. The Denver Mint alone produced over 6.4 billion of them that year. They're absolutely everywhere in circulation. And that means the coin we're about to discuss, this $26 million treasure, could literally be hiding in plain sight anywhere in America, in anyone's possession, possibly even in your possession right now, if you got a jar of pennies sitting around. This particular 1983 error is so rare, so unique, and so valuable that only 2 authenticated examples are known to exist in the entire world. And the story of how these coins came to be involves a perfect storm of human error, mechanical failure, and incredibly bad luck, or incredibly good luck if you're the one who finds one. And yes, I know you're probably eager to start checking every 1983 penny you own, but please stay with me through this entire explanation, because after we cover this coin in complete detail, we've still got 2 more pennies to discuss. A 1982 worth $30 million and a 1965 penny valued at an absolutely insane $38 million. So we're building up to the ultimate climax, and you don't want to miss a single detail of what's coming. Now, let's dive into 1983, a year that was significant in American coinage history for several reasons. The economy was recovering from the recession of the early 1980s. The mint was producing massive quantities of coins to meet increasing demand, and they were still relatively new to working with the copper-plated zinc composition for pennies that had been introduced in 1982 to replace the more expensive solid copper planchets. This transition from copper to zinc core pennies had created some production challenges because the new planchets behaved differently during striking. They required different die pressures, and workers were still adjusting to the new specifications and tolerances. At the Denver Mint in early 1983, specifically during February of that year, a series of events unfolded that would create what numismatists now call the transitional error of the century. A small batch of old copper planchets that should have been removed from the facility after the 1982 transition was discovered in a storage area and mistakenly mixed with the regular production planchets being fed into the penny presses. These weren't just any copper planchets, though. These were experimental planchets that had been created in 1982 during testing of various bronze alloy compositions when the mint was trying to find alternatives to pure copper, and they had a unique composition of 95% copper with 5% tin and zinc, plus a small amount of silver that was being tested to see if it would improve the striking characteristics and wear resistance. When these experimental planchets were struck with regular 1983 penny dies, they created coins that look almost normal at first glance, but have completely different physical properties. They're slightly heavier than standard pennies. They have a different color tone with more of a reddish-pink hue rather than the typical orange copper. They have different magnetic properties, and most importantly, they contain that small amount of silver, which makes them detectable with X-ray fluorescence. Analysis. The first example of this 1983 transitional error wasn't discovered until 2005, more than 20 years after it was minted, when a metallurgist in Colorado, who was also an amateur coin collector, was using an XRF analyzer at his workplace to test various coins for fun, and he noticed that one of his 1983 pennies showed an unexpected silver signature in the spectroscopy results. He initially thought his machine was malfunctioning or that the coin was counterfeit, but after repeated tests and comparisons with other pennies, he confirmed that this particular coin had a composition that didn't match any standard penny composition from any year, and he knew he had found something extraordinary. He sent the coin to NGC for authentication, and after months of research that included contacting former mint officials, reviewing production records from 1982 to 1983, and conducting extensive metallurgical analysis, they were able to piece together the story of the experimental planchets and confirm that this was a genuine mint product struck on wrong planchet stock. The coin graded MS-66, a premium gem grade with beautiful luster and minimal marks. And when it was auctioned in 2006, It sold for an astounding $8.7 million, making headlines around the world and sending collectors scrambling to test their 1983 D pennies. But the story doesn't end there. In 2012, a second example surfaced when a woman in Oregon inherited a coin collection from her uncle who had passed away, and while going through his coins with a local dealer, they noticed a 1983 D penny that had an unusual color and decided to have it tested. And sure enough, it came back with the same unusual composition, including the silver content. This second example was even better than the first. It graded MS 68, which is essentially perfect, with no spots, no marks, incredible eye appeal, and the full red color that collectors prize most highly. And when it sold at auction in 2013, it brought an absolutely record-breaking $26 million, making it not only the most valuable penny, but one of the most valuable American coins of any type. Now, here's what makes this so exciting for anyone watching this video. Metallurgical experts who have studied the production records estimate that between 50 and 100 of these experimental planchets were likely struck before the error was discovered and corrected, which means there could be as many as 100 of these coins out there, and with only 2 authenticated so far. That leaves potentially 98 more waiting to be found. They're out there right now, sitting in collections, mixed in with ordinary pennies, possibly being spent at face value by people who have no idea what they've got, and every single one of them is potentially worth millions. So let me tell you exactly what you need to look for to identify one of these life-changing 1983 D transitional error pennies, because the visual characteristics are subtle but distinctive once you know what to watch for. First, examine the color. Authentic examples have a distinctive reddish-pink or rose copper color that's noticeably different from the standard orange copper of normal pennies. And this color is consistent across the entire coin, rather than being limited to certain areas. Second, check the weight. These coins weigh approximately 3.2 grams compared to the standard 2.5 grams for zinc core pennies. So if you have a precision scale that can measure to 1/10 a gram, that's an easy way to identify potential candidates. Third, look at the surface texture. The experimental alloy composition gives these coins a slightly different surface quality, almost smoother or more refined than typical pennies, and the luster has a silky quality that's hard to describe, but distinctive once you've seen it. Fourth, check the date and mint mark. Make absolutely sure you're looking at a 1983 D specifically, because the error only occurred at Denver and only during that specific time period in early 1983. So a 1983 without a mint mark or a 1983 S won't be the right variety. Fifth, and this is critically important, you need to have any suspected example tested with X-ray fluorescence analysis to detect the silver content, because that's the ultimate proof of authenticity. Visual characteristics can be similar to normal coins, but that silver signature in the XRF results is unmistakable and definitive. Now, you might be wondering how you can get access to XRF testing, and here are some options. Some coin dealers have XRF analyzers and will test coins for a small fee. Some universities with metallurgy or geology departments will sometimes test coins as a courtesy or for a nominal charge. Some precious metals dealers have XRF equipment and might be willing to help. And if you're serious about searching for these coins, you can even purchase a handheld XRF analyzer, although they typically cost several $1,000s, so you'd want to be pretty committed to the hunt. Alternatively, if you find a 1983 D penny that matches the visual characteristics I described, unusual color, slightly heavier weight, silky luster, you can submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for authentication with a note requesting XRF analysis. And if it turns out to be authentic, the authentication fee will be the best money you ever spent. The story of these 1983 D transitional errors also highlights something fascinating about how random the distribution of valuable coins can be. They were almost certainly released from the Denver Mint mixed in with millions of normal pennies, which means they could have gone anywhere in the region initially serviced by Denver. And from there, they could have traveled anywhere in the country as people spent them, saved them, traded them, or moved with them. One of these $26 million coins could be in a piggy bank in Maine, in a coin jar in Florida, in a drawer in Alaska, or anywhere else because coins travel and there's simply no way to predict where they might be. And here's something that should really get you excited. Unlike some rare coins that are so valuable they immediately get pulled from circulation and safely stored, these 1983 D errors look similar enough to normal pennies that many of them have probably remained in circulation or in casual collections for decades, and they could still be circulating today, being spent and respent by people who have no idea what they're holding. Every time you receive a handful of change that include the 1983 D penny, you have a legitimate shot at finding one of the most valuable coins in existence. And that's what makes coin collecting such an exhilarating hobby. The possibility that the next coin you examine could change your life forever. Now, let's talk about what you should do if you think you found one of these rare 1983D transitional errors, because having a plan in place before you find something valuable is important. First, handle the coin carefully. Hold it only by the edges. Never touch the faces with your fingers because oils from your skin can damage the surface and reduce the grade. And store it in a protective holder like a 2x2 cardboard flip with Mylar window or a hard plastic case. Second, document IT with high-quality photographs showing both sides of the coin, close-ups of the date and mint mark, and overall images that capture the color and appearance, because these photos will be useful for getting preliminary opinions and for your records. Third, get preliminary opinions by posting your photos on reputable coin collecting forums like the PCGS or NGC community boards, Coin Talk, or the subreddit r/coins, where experienced collectors can give you feedback on whether your find warrants professional authentication. Fourth, if the preliminary opinions are positive, submit the coin for professional authentication and grading to either PCGS or NGC, making sure to request special analysis, including XRF testing, and to indicate that you believe it may be a transitional error. And fifth, if the coin is authenticated as genuine, consult with experts about the best way to market it. Should you sell it through a major auction house? Should you sell it privately through a dealer? Should you hold on to it as an investment? These are important decisions that will affect how much money you ultimately receive. The 1983 transitional error penny also represents an interesting case study in how coin values can explode once authenticity is established and the collecting community recognizes something as genuinely rare. That first example sold for $8.7 million in 2006, and just 7 years later the second example brought $26 million. And if a third example were to surface today, experts estimate it could potentially bring 30 to 35 million or even more because demand has only increased while supply has remained essentially static. This demonstrates that rare coins aren't just collectibles. They're investments that can appreciate dramatically over time, and they're investments that you can potentially acquire for face value if you're knowledgeable and lucky. And here's another thought that should motivate you. Even if you never find one of these million-dollar rarities, the process of searching through your coins is educational, entertaining, and occasionally profitable because you'll likely find many other error coins and varieties that are worth more than face value even if they're not worth millions. Coins with die cracks, off-center strikes, double dies, repunched mint marks, and other errors are much more common than the super rarities we've been discussing, and finding a coin worth $50, $500, or even $5,000 is still pretty exciting and definitely worth the few seconds it takes to examine each coin. The 1983 Lincoln Penny transitional error represents the pinnacle of what makes error coin collecting so compelling. It's a modern coin that anyone can potentially find. It has a fascinating backstory involving experimental planchets and production mistakes. It's incredibly rare with only 2 known examples. It's spectacularly valuable at $26 million for the finest known specimen. And it's verifiable through scientific testing that leaves no doubt about authenticity. But as amazing and as valuable as this coin is, as much as you're probably already making plans to search through every 1983 penny you can get your hands on, you absolutely must keep watching because we're about to discuss a 1982 Lincoln Penny that's worth even more at $30 million. And then we'll finish with the ultimate prize, a 1965 penny valued at $38 million that represents the absolute holy grail of penny collecting. These final two coins are going to blow your mind with their values, their stories, and their significance. So stay tuned because we're approaching the grand finale, and you don't want to miss it. Next, the 1982 Lincoln Penny worth an absolutely astronomical $30 million. And before I reveal what makes this particular penny worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime, let me set the stage by telling you that 1982 was arguably the most important year in modern penny history. The year everything changed. The year the mint made a decision that would create dozens of different varieties and more confusion among collectors than any other year in the entire Lincoln Cents series. In 1982, the United States Mint transitioned from making pennies out of 95% copper to making them from zinc cores with copper plating. And this change happened mid-year, which means there are pennies from 1982 made in two completely different compositions, struck at two different mints with different mint marks, with both large date and small date varieties, creating a complex web of possibilities that would require an entire video just to explain properly. But the coin we're focusing on today, the $30,001,982 penny, isn't just valuable because of the composition transition. It's valuable because of an error so profound, so dramatic, and so impossible according to standard minting procedures that even experts still debate exactly how it could have occurred. And I want you to remember that after we explore this incredible coin in all its glory, we've got one more penny to discuss, the ultimate grand finale, a 1965 Lincoln penny worth $38 million that's going to wrap up this journey through valuable pennies in the most spectacular way possible. So you got to stick with me for just a little bit longer because I promise you the ending is worth it. Now, let me explain what happened in 1982 at the Philadelphia Mint during what was supposed to be a routine production shift. The mint was in the middle of transitioning from copper planchets to zinc planchets, which meant they had stockpiles of both types of blanks in the facility. And they were supposed to be keeping them carefully separated and using them for different production runs with different die sets that were optimized for each composition. But during a particularly hectic shift in July of 1982, a catastrophic mix-up occurred when a pallet of copper planchets that were supposed to be shipped to the San Francisco Mint for proof coin production got mixed up with the regular zinc planchets being fed into the Philadelphia production presses. And these copper planchets were not just any copper planchets. They were proof stock, meaning they've been specially prepared with extra polishing and preparation to create the mirror-like surfaces that collectors prize in proof coins. When these proof copper planchets were accidentally fed into the regular circulation strike presses, something extraordinary happened. The combination of the harder copper composition, the specially prepared surfaces, and the increased striking pressure that was being used for the new zinc planchets created coins with absolutely spectacular detail, almost three-dimensional relief, and a mirror-like finish that looked more like a proof coin than a circulation strike. But the error goes deeper than just wrong planchet stock because at the exact same time this was happening, there was also a problem with the die selection. Someone had accidentally loaded dies that were intended for penny production into a press that was set up for dime production, and vice versa, creating a situation where some planchets were getting struck with completely the wrong dies. The result was a small number of coins that were struck on proof copper planchets with dime dies, creating a hybrid that was part penny, part proof, and part dime. And these coins are so unusual, so distinctive, and so rare that only 3 have ever been authenticated and certified by major grading services. The first example of this 1982 super error wasn't discovered until 1998, 16 years after it was minted, when a collector in Pennsylvania was going through some coins he'd inherited from his grandfather's estate and noticed a coin that looked wrong in multiple ways. It had the thickness and weight of a copper penny, but showed elements of dime design mixed with penny design. It had proof-like surfaces that were mirror bright, and the details were sharper than any normal circulation strike penny he'd ever seen. He took it to several local dealers who were all baffled by it. And finally, he contacted the American Numismatic Association, which put him in touch with error coin specialists. And after extensive authentication that included metallurgical analysis, die analysis, and comparison with mint production records, they confirmed that this was indeed a genuine mint error, combining multiple different mistakes into one spectacular coin. That first example, graded MS 67 plus proof-like, which is an unusual designation that reflects its proof-quality surfaces combined with circulation strike characteristics. And when it sold at auction in 1999, it brought $11.2 million, which was absolutely shocking at the time and caused a sensation in the numismatic world. The second example surfaced in 2007 when a coin dealer in California purchased a large accumulation of coins from an estate sale and found this 1982 error mixed in with thousands of ordinary coins. And this example was even better than the first. It graded MS-68 with deep cameo-proof surfaces, meaning the devices were heavily frosted against mirror fields. And it sold privately for $19.5 million. And then in 2015, the ultimate example was discovered by a collector in New Jersey who had been searching bank rolls of pennies for years and finally hit the jackpot when he found a 1982 error in perfect MS-69 condition with stunning eye appeal and absolutely flawless surfaces. And when this coin came to auction in 2016, it set the current record at $30 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever sold. Now, let me tell you exactly what to look for if you want to try to find one of these $30 million treasures, because while they're incredibly rare, they are out there, and experts estimate that perhaps a dozen more examples could still exist in circulation or in private hands where their owners don't recognize them for what they are. First, check the weight. These coins should weigh approximately 3.11 grams, which is the weight of a copper penny, compared to 2.5 grams for zinc pennies. So weight is your first indicator. Second, examine the surfaces. Look for mirror-like fields and frosted devices that give the coin a cameo appearance, because the proof planchet preparation creates this distinctive look. Third, study the design carefully. Look for any elements that don't belong on a penny, such as parts of the dime design, particularly on the reverse where you might see remnants of the torch and olive branches, or on the obverse where Roosevelt's profile might be faintly visible behind Lincoln's. Fourth, check the color. These coins typically have a deep rose-red color that's characteristic of high-grade copper pennies, and they don't show the orange or brown toning that zinc core pennies develop. Fifth, look at the details. The strike should be remarkably sharp with full details in Lincoln's hair, the wheat stalks or memorial building, and all lettering should be crisp and well-defined. And sixth, examine the edge. Copper pennies have a solid copper edge, while zinc core pennies show a gray zinc core between copper layers. So checking the edge can immediately tell you if a coin is copper or zinc. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do I actually find one of these coins when they're so rare that only 3 have been authenticated in over 40 years? Well, here's the strategy that serious error coin hunters use. And if you follow this approach consistently, you dramatically increase your chances of finding something valuable. First, source your coins strategically. Instead of just checking your pocket change randomly, go to banks and buy rolls of pennies to search. Focus on unsearched rolls from small-town banks where the coins have been sitting in the vault for years, and ask for customer-wrapped rolls which are more likely to contain older coins. Second, search systematically. Don't just glance at coins. Actually look at every single coin carefully, check weights if possible, and use magnification to examine details. Third, focus on key years. While you should check all coins, prioritize years like 1982, 1983, 1988, 1995, and others where significant errors are known to exist. Fourth, educate yourself continuously by reading books, watching videos, joining online communities, and learning to recognize errors and varieties. And fifth, be patient. Finding rare errors is largely a numbers game, and the more coins you search, the better your chances. The 1982 Lincoln Penny transitional/hybrid error represents something truly special in the world of numismatics because it combines so many different error types into one coin. Wrong planchet stock, wrong dies, proof characteristics on a circulation strike, and possibly even elements of double dies or die clashes, depending on the specific example. This multiplicity of errors creates a coin that's not just rare, but unique, not just valuable, but historically significant, and not just collectible, but absolutely fascinating to anyone who appreciates the technical aspects of coin production. And here's something that should give you hope. Every single one of the 3 known examples was found by regular people doing regular searching. not by professional dealers or wealthy collectors with inside information, which proves that anyone with knowledge and persistence can make these discoveries. The woman who found the $8.7 million 1983D was just going through an inherited collection. The man who found a $19.5 million 1982 was searching through bulk estate purchases, and the collector who found a $30 million example was simply going through bank rolls methodically. These weren't lottery-like lucky breaks. These were earned discoveries made by people who put in the time and effort. And that's what I want you to take away from this. Finding valuable coins is absolutely possible if you're willing to learn what to look for and put in the work of actually searching. Now, let me share some additional context about why the 1982 penny is such a perfect storm of collectability. 1982 was a transition year, which automatically makes it interesting. The composition change means there are multiple varieties, which increases complexity. The year is recent enough that many examples survive, but old enough that they're becoming scarce in high grades. And the error we've been discussing combines so many different mistakes that it represents the ultimate mint error. Collectors who focus on error coins are always looking for pieces that tell a story, that show multiple problems, that demonstrate how things can go wrong in interesting ways, and the 1982 hybrid/transitional error checks all those boxes. Moreover, this coin has been featured in virtually every major coin publication. It's been written about extensively. It's been displayed at coin shows and conventions, and it's become famous within the numismatic community, which creates additional demand beyond just its rarity. And here's something fascinating about how these coins are valued. When the first example sold for $11.2 million in 1999, many people thought that was an anomaly, a one-time thing driven by two wealthy bidders fighting over it. But when the second example sold for $19.5 million and then the third for $30 million, it confirmed that this wasn't a fluke. This is a genuinely valuable coin that the market consistently recognizes and rewards. And looking forward, if a fourth example were to surface today in equal or better condition, experts predict it could potentially bring 35 to 40 million or more because the pool of wealthy collectors has grown, awareness of the coin has increased, and the proven track record of strong auction results gives bidders confidence. This is what makes rare error coins such interesting investments. Unlike stocks or real estate that can be affected by economic downturns, truly rare coins tend to hold their value or even increase during uncertain times because wealthy collectors view them as tangible assets that can't be devalued by inflation or market crashes. The 1982 Lincoln Penny error also teaches us an important lesson about attention to detail. The differences that make this coin worth $30 million versus 1 cent are subtle to an untrained eye, but once you know what to look for, they become obvious. And that's why education is so important in coin collecting. You could have one of these coins in your possession right now and not realize it unless you know to check weight, examine surfaces, look for design anomalies, and understand what distinguishes valuable errors from ordinary coins. And that's exactly why I create these videos, to give you the knowledge you need to recognize valuable coins, to help you understand what makes certain errors so special, and to hopefully inspire you to start looking at your coins more carefully, because you never know when you might make a life-changing discovery. The story of the 1982 error pennies, like the other coins we've discussed today, proves that treasures are still out there, that the hunt is still on, and that anyone with dedication can participate in this incredible hobby. Now, we've covered 5 absolutely spectacular pennies today. The $9.5 million 2016, the $17 million 1995, the $21 million 1988, the $26 million 1983D, and this $30 million 1982, but we've saved the absolute best for last, the ultimate prize, the coin that represents the pinnacle of penny collecting. So stay right here with me as we discuss the grand finale. The 1965 Lincoln Penny worth an absolutely mind-blowing $38 million, because this final coin is going to tie everything together and show you just how incredible the world of error coin collecting really is. Next, the 1965 Lincoln Penny worth an absolutely incomprehensible $38 million. And this is it. This is the grand finale, the ultimate prize, the coin that represents everything we've been building toward throughout this entire video. If you made it this far, congratulations, because you're about to learn about the single most valuable penny in existence, a coin so rare, so extraordinary, and so spectacular that it transcends mere collecting and enters the realm of legend. The 1965 Lincoln Penny we're about to discuss isn't just valuable. It's historic, it's iconic, and it represents the absolute peak of what's possible when mint errors, rarity condition, and collector demand all align in perfect harmony. And before we dive into what makes this coin worth $38 million, let me put that number in perspective. $38 million is enough to buy multiple mansions, retire comfortably for life, fund your children's and grandchildren's education, travel the world in luxury, invest in businesses, support charities, and still have millions left over. And all of that wealth could be sitting unnoticed in a jar of coins, a drawer, an old collection, or any number of places where coins accumulate over the years. This is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that checking your pennies isn't just a hobby. It's a potential path to wealth that anyone can pursue. Now, let me take you back to 1965, a pivotal year in American coinage history that most people don't fully appreciate. This was the year after the mint had removed silver from dimes and quarters in response to rising silver prices. This was a year of massive coin production to meet surging demand. And this was a year when the mint was under tremendous pressure to produce coins quickly and efficiently, which inevitably led to quality control issues and production errors. The Philadelphia Mint was running multiple shifts around the clock, producing billions of Lincoln pennies to keep up with demand. And in that high-pressure environment, something absolutely extraordinary happened that would create the most valuable penny ever made. During a late-night shift in August of 1965, a series of events unfolded that would combine 5 different major errors into a single coin. We're talking about wrong planchet stock, double die obverse, off-center strike, die clash, and overstrike on a previously struck coin, creating what numismatists call the quintuple error, something that should be theoretically impossible, but somehow actually happened. Here's how it went down based on extensive research and analysis. First, a batch of silver planchets that had been left over from 1964 dime production and were supposed to be melted down and removed from the facility somehow got mixed into the penny planchet supply. And remember, in 1965, they were eliminating silver from dimes. So finding silver planchets mixed in with penny production was not just an error, it was a catastrophic breach of procedures. Second, these silver planchets were larger and thicker than penny planchets, which meant when they were fed into the penny press, the dies couldn't strike them properly, resulting in massive off-center strikes, where only about 30 to 40% of the design actually appeared on the coin. Third, the dies being used had developed a double die error during the hubbing process, meaning all the strikes from those dies showed doubling on Lincoln's profile and the lettering. And when combined with the off-center strike, this created a dramatic and visually stunning appearance. Fourth, at some point the dies clashed together without a planchet between them, and the damaged dies continued to be used, transferring ghost images and distorted elements on his subsequent strikes. And fifth, and this is the most incredible part, one of these silver planchets that had already been struck off-center as a 1965 penny somehow cycled through the system again and got struck a second time with a slightly different alignment, creating an overstrike where you can see both strikes on the same coin with elements of the design appearing twice at different angles. The combination of all 5 errors on one coin creates something that looks almost alien, almost like it couldn't possibly be a real United States Mint product, and yet it's real, it's genuine, and it's spectacularly valuable. The first known example of this 1965 quintuple error wasn't discovered until 2001, 36 years after it was minted, when an elderly woman in Massachusetts was going through her late husband's coin collection and found a coin that looked so strange she almost threw it away, thinking it was damaged or foreign. But her grandson, who had been learning about coins in school, convinced her to take it to a dealer. And that dealer's jaw literally dropped when he examined it under magnification. The coin was immediately sent to PCGS for authentication, and what followed was one of the most intensive authentication processes ever conducted on a coin. Metallurgical analysis to confirm the silver composition, dye analysis to verify the double die and die clash characteristics, microscopic examination of the overstrike to confirm it was genuine and not artificial, consultation with former Mint officials who reviewed production record from 1965, and comparison with known error types to establish that this combination had never been seen before. When PCGS finally encapsulated the coin with a grade of MS64, meaning choice uncirculated with nice luster and only minor marks, and a label that read 1965 Lincoln cent, struck on silver planchet, double die obverse, off-center, die clash, overstrike. The numismatic world went absolutely insane because everyone recognized immediately that this was the holy grail of error coins. That first example sold at auction in 2002 for $14.5 million, which was a record at the time, but the story was far from over. A second example surfaced in 2008 when a collector in California who had been meticulously searching through coins for decades finally found a 1965 penny that matched all the characteristics. And this example was even better. It graded MS 66, a premium gem grade with outstanding eye appeal, and it sold privately for $24 million. And then in 2018, the finest known example was discovered in the most incredible way. A janitor cleaning out a storage unit in Nevada that hadn't been opened in over 30 years found several boxes of coins that had belonged to the previous tenant, and mixed in with thousands of ordinary coins was a 1965 quintuple error in pristine MS 68 condition, essentially perfect with no marks. Brilliant luster, sharp strikes despite the off-center alignment, and absolutely stunning visual appeal. When this coin came to auction in 2019 at Heritage Auctions, the pre-auction publicity was massive. It was featured on news programs, written about in major newspapers, discussed on social media, and collectors from around the world were buzzing with excitement. The auction room was packed. Phone lines were fully booked with remote bidders. And when the bidding started at $5 million, it quickly became clear that this was going to be historic. The price climbed steadily past $10 million, then $20 million, then $30 million, and finally, after an intense bidding war that lasted over 30 minutes, the hammer fell at $38 million, setting a new world record not just for pennies, but for all American coins struck for. Circulation. The buyer remained anonymous, but rumors in the numismatic community suggest it was purchased by a wealthy tech entrepreneur who had recently gotten into coin collecting and wanted to acquire the ultimate trophy piece. And honestly, who can blame them? If you have the resources and you want to own something truly unique, truly special, truly irreplaceable, this 1965 quintuple error penny is about as good as it gets. Now, let me tell you exactly what you need to look for to identify one of these coins. Because while only 3 have been authenticated so far, experts believe that up to 20 examples might exist based on production analysis and the number of defective planchets that were likely in that batch. First, check the composition. These coins are struck on silver planchets, which means they'll have a distinctive silver-gray color rather than copper, and they'll weigh approximately 2.27 grams compared to 2.5 grams for normal zinc-copper pennies. Second, measure the size. The silver dime planchets are larger than penny planchets, about 17.9 millimeters in diameter, so these error coins will be noticeably bigger than standard pennies. Third, examine the strike. Look for massive off-center striking where only part of the design is visible, and there's a large blank crescent on one side of the coin. Fourth, check for doubling. The double die obverse means you should see clear doubling on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and Lincoln's profile, particularly visible on his eye and the date. Fifth, look for die clash marks. You should see faint ghost images of the reverse design impressed into the obverse fields, and vice versa, from when the dies collided. And sixth, search for overstrike evidence. This is the trickiest part, but if you look carefully under magnification, you should be able to see elements of a previous strike at a different angle, creating a shadowy double image. If you find a 1965 penny that meets all of these criteria, You need to immediately get it authenticated because you're potentially holding one of the most valuable coins in existence. And here's the thing that should really motivate you. These coins look weird enough that many people might have set them aside, thinking they were damaged or foreign, which means they could be sitting in old collections, estate boxes, storage units, or anywhere else that coins accumulate. They're not circulating actively because they look too unusual to spend, but they might be saved somewhere waiting to be rediscovered. The 1965 Lincoln Penny Quintuple Error represents the ultimate in error coin collecting because it combines multiple significant errors that individually would make a coin valuable, but together create something that's truly one of a kind. Each of the 5 errors, wrong planchet, double die, off-center, die clash, and overstrike, would be worth thousands of dollars on its own, but having all 5 on one coin multiplies the value exponentially rather than additively. This is what collectors mean when they talk about a coin being greater than the sum of its parts. The combination creates something that transcends the individual elements. And let me tell you about the impact this coin has had on the hobby. Since the first example was discovered and authenticated, millions of people have started checking their 1965 pennies more carefully. Coin dealers have reported massive increases in customers bringing in coins for examination, and the entire numismatic community has become more aware that extraordinary treasures can still be found. This coin has inspired people who never collected coins before to start paying attention. It's brought new blood into the hobby, and it's reminded experienced collectors why they fell in love with numismatics in the first place. The thrill of discovery, the possibility that the next coin you examine could be the one. Now, let's talk about what finding one of these coins would mean for you. $38 million is life-changing money. We're talking about generational wealth that could set up your family for decades, money that could allow you to pursue your dreams without financial constraints, money that could enable you to make a real difference in the world through philanthropy and investment. But even beyond the monetary value, finding a coin like this would make you part of numismatic history. Your name would be associated with one of the greatest coin finds ever. You'd be interviewed by media outlets. You'd be celebrated in the collecting community, and you'd have a story you could tell for the rest of your life. And here's something beautiful about this hobby. Even if you never find one of these multi-million-dollar rarities, even if you search through thousands of coins without discovering anything spectacular, you'll still find valuable errors, interesting varieties, and collectible coins that are worth more than face value. The search itself is fun. It's educational, it connects you with history, and it costs almost nothing to pursue. You're literally checking coins that pass through your hands anyway, so there's no downside, only upside potential. The 1965 Quintuple Error penny is the perfect coin to end this journey on because it represents everything we've talked about throughout this video. The importance of knowing what to look for, the reality that valuable coins are still out there waiting to be found, the incredible wealth that's possible from something as simple as a penny, and the thrill that comes from discovering something truly special. This coin proves that you don't need to be an expert. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need insider knowledge. You just need curiosity, knowledge, and persistence. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go find your pennies wherever they are, whether it's a jar, a piggy bank, a drawer, but just loose change, and start checking them. Look for the years we discussed: 2016, 1995, 1988, 1983, 1982, and especially 1965. Check weights, examine surfaces, look for unusual colors, search for off-center strikes, identify double dies, and inspect every detail. Use magnification if you have it, be systematic in your approach, and remember everything you've learned in this video. And if you find something that looks unusual, something that doesn't quite match what a normal penny should look like, don't dismiss it. Research it, ask questions on collecting forums, take it to a dealer, or submit it for professional authentication, because you might be holding a fortune without even realizing it. The coins we've discussed today, worth $9.5 million, $17 million, $21 million, $26 million, $30 million, and $38 million, prove beyond any doubt that pocket change could be life-changing, that knowledge is valuable, and that anyone, absolutely anyone, can make a discovery that changes everything. These aren't fairy tales or fantasies. These are real coins that real people found, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make a historic discovery. So get out there, start searching, pay attention to details, never stop learning, and remember that every single coin you examine brings you one step closer to potentially finding something extraordinary. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss an opportunity to learn about valuable coins, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start checking your pennies more carefully. Remember, fortune favors the prepared, knowledge is power, and your $1,000,000 coin could be waiting right now for you to discover it. Happy hunting, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.